Hello and welcome to another clapping, fabulous edition of Five Things Friday, USA edition with my fabulous co-host, Jill from the NRF. Jill, hello, welcome.
Hello, Alex. Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday. I got so excited to say hello to you, I didn't hit our music. So let's roll intro. So, Jill, off the bat, before we get into our five things, there's a cultural moment that I think is I think it will go around the globe. I assume.
Going viral.
Well, UK. So I'm just going to share this with you and get your react. So give me 1 second as I set it up.
I love it. A cold reaction. Okay.
So that was the German part. That was Bjork, who just came in on the end. What do you think?
With no swan dress.
Yeah, no. So the reason why I share that with you, Rosalia is like a pop reggaeton, flamenco, like cross genre. She doesn't want to be defined by one genre. And the reason why I find that this is a really interesting moment culturally is the fact that classical music, for young people, for this new generation, it's just nostalgia. It's either something they've heard on the radio, it's on TV adverts, but this is at the heart of a pop song, classical music. And so, yeah, your lights have got...
My light just went off. Stand up to turn it back on. I wasn't dancing fast enough.
No, it's okay. So I think it's just one of those wonderful cultural moments. It's a collaboration between Rosalia, Bjork, and this other American hip-hop artist. Unfortunately, his section at the end is my least favorite part. But I think there's so many retailers now trying to come back on nostalgia alone. And nostalgia without cultural moments is a big gap. And on the other shows, we've been talking about, various brands. Gap, for example, in the UK, has had a difficult time of coming back and just relying on their nostalgia. So anyway,
you're so right. I mean, just this week, Fanatics, US-based company out of Florida, announced a partnership with the NFL, and they're and essentially all of their gear. They already have all of the licenses.
Yeah.
But what it means is now they're going back and they can use all of the vaulted archival, old uniforms, the throwback uniforms, all of that.
Oh, wow.
You don't see unless it's a special game. So I think there is a piece of that. It's, what's old is new again. And it's, I guess you live long enough and you see it come back around. So
yeah, but I think it's just the fact that, embracing cultural moments like this. I mean, for example, K-pop Demon Hunters over the summer was the lost moment for retailers because they just totally missed that. It went to number one across the world. And now Jimmy Fallon had them, I think, a couple of weeks back. And Saturday Night Live they were on. But anyway, cultural moments.
You know who didn't miss that moment? Spencer's and Spirit Halloween stores. Number one costume this year was K-pop Demon Hunter.
You went on this.
Stephanie a couple weeks ago, and she said it was like, good luck finding it. It was and that didn't exist right until a few months ago. So just showing, like, if you are that nimble of a retailer, you can capitalize on the sale, you can capitalize on the moment, and you can get it to the customer. And look, it's not even Halloween yet, and I'm sure people would still be buying it. So
100%.
I mean, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, okay, moving on very swiftly, keeping to our fast-paced thing, we'll start with you and Amazon.
Yeah, this was a pretty rough day yesterday for, upwards of about 30,000 people got cut from Amazon. It's, reports are still coming in. I mean, this literally happened less than 24 hours ago. Unfortunately, it was pretty broad cuts across a lot of groups. A lot of it are being told, it's for efficiency and for streamlining, things like that. But, 30,000 is
a big number.
It's a huge number, but for Amazon, it's actually not that big of a number. So, there it was across everything, a little bit of AWS as well as Amazon proper.
Yeah, the way I read it, it was basically HQ workers, the head office workers. And it's a little bit rough coming just before Christmas, but I think they have
and it's they've been saying for a long time, if you're not back in headquarters, things are going to happen. So, it'll be interesting to see just how many of those people weren't back at a main HQ center, and then also figuring out like which departments it was in. But that's a huge number, and it's,
it sucks. And if anyone is affected by this and you need some guidance from a podcaster, feel free to reach out to me. I'll make you smile. I have no advice, but I'll be able to make you smile at least. But in all seriousness, it sucks. Microsoft went through this when I was at it, and it was really tough because some of the people that have been there the longest were affected. So it's not easy, but yeah.
The email's online if people want to read it that Amazon sent out yesterday. But yes, reach out to Alex and I if we can help in any way.
Yeah, not with career advice, but we'll just be there for you.
We'll connect you with someone. We know some great people out there in the world.
Yeah, and the full article, I think Jill just said this full article's on Reuters if you would like to read more about this. Moving on, I think we talked about cultural moments just now. Another fantastic, I think Calvin Klein is again another one of those heritage brands is thinking, how do I stay relevant? How do I create meaningful impact? And K-pop is absolutely at the heart of it. And one of the best looking men in K-pop is Jungkook, who is, I don't know if he's the lead singer because it's BTS, and so there's like, it's a boy band. So,
fair.
But he's one of the good looking ones that has gone into this campaign with Calvin Klein. And I think again another heritage brand connecting with K-pop and trying to build relevance to a new generation, which is interesting. And there was an article that will probably, I don't know which way you'll think about this, Jill, but it was about how Gen Beta that are being born in 2025, fashion retailers are thinking about what will they, and I was like, really? Gen Alpha they're 7 years old right now, but Gen Beta, 2025 and onwards, the fashion world is looking at them. So
we might need a minute. Look, Generation Beta does not need underwear yet. They have not been born and they are still in diapers. So give us a hop in it.
Yeah, there you go.
I will say this makes me feel a little bit old because I feel like Mark Wahlberg was the original Calvin Klein one that I remember. God, yeah. I'm sure there were some before, but
it's so funny. You remember the men's one and I remember the women's one. That was like, hello. I don't know, but it was just "Hello, boys" was the caption that we were all told about. So
they've done a great job at their ads.
Yeah, phenomenal job. Moving on, TikTok with you.
Yeah, so TikTok, there's a lot going on with TikTok in the US. I mean, where we are right now is obviously ByteDance owns the US, owns all of TikTok. But in the US, TikTok needs to be divested to remain here. So there's a $14 billion deal led by Oracle, Larry Ellison, and a bunch of other investors. But what's happening is right now, people are trying to figure out, okay, so if TikTok's not in charge, the algorithm is more or less the product, right? So what will change with the algorithm? What will change with the trust data? What will change with where the data goes? And the irony is the whole reason we're trying to regulate TikTok is that people don't have trust in where your data goes and all of that. So there's all of these headlines. And really, I think the most relevant thing for brands and retailers to take away is, will the algorithm still be in your favor in terms of surfacing your product? TikTok Shop still working if it's there. So it's a lot of hubbub and really it's a lot of wait and see at this point, but it does seem like we're getting closer and closer to the goal of divesting TikTok so that it's not a Chinese-based company operating in the US. And that's really kind of where the line has been, but it's been delayed year after year. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one to see, and obviously, we'll move on because then you're getting into the ins and outs of who controls the algorithm. What's the algorithm going to tell you? But anyway, moving on. Another Christmas, it's round the corner, and I know you know this brand, JCPenney's. I would describe them as the department store for Middle America. No.
Yeah, I mean they were. For a long time, they were kind of the department store in the US. And, they kind of fell by the wayside for a lot of the fashion digital collaboration moments for a while. But they have really been doing a pretty strong turnaround. They're outside of Dallas in Plano, Texas. They're owned by Catalyst Brands, which is run by Mark Rosen, who is a venerated retailer, lots and lots of experience. And he has hired in Marissa Thalberg, who's an unbelievable brand and marketing genius. So this is straight out of her playbook, getting it relevant, getting it in front of people. The Jingle Ball is a music festival that happens, and it's cool, it's hip, it's talked about, it's hit by every cool pop star. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if BTS is there. I mean, it's a real thing. And the fact that she's partnering with them is pretty impressive. And it's just bringing JCPenney back into everyone's mindset. And look, I mean, they've modernized it. They've made it cool. They're trying to get to kind of the Gen Alpha, Gen Z vibe. I'm here for a moment where we can bring back a brand that was so cool and so great for a lot of people. It was never high priced. It was never the lowest price. It was always kind of in that, the bottom third in terms of pricing.
Yeah, where value starts, but it doesn't necessarily go that cheap that it's that. And I think
that's what people need this holiday, right? There's a lot of consumer uncertainty. So I think this is a really, really good time for them.
Yeah. And I think that whole messaging around this about, it's what they thought that counts. And when I was reading about it, it's basically saying, it's not about mass consumption. It's about micro consumption on the things that counts, right? And obviously, I get it. What they're saying is, one trip to JCPenney's is enough for Christmas. That's it. You've done your holiday shopping is done. Just come to us. We'll take care of you. Don't go crazy everywhere else.
You can get something for everyone here. Kind of.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't have to cost the earth and it doesn't have to ruin the planet type thing. But so really cool. I really love it in the sense of it's positive, it's engaging, it's around the things that you want to see value-based. And sticking with value-based, I think another Irish retailer that's done phenomenally well in the US. And I think their growth in the US is between 20 and 25%. And I remember the CEO at one of the conferences in the UK, him, 2-3 years ago saying, we've got this expansion plan, we're going to make US our home. Everyone said we can't do it, but we feel that we can. And again, the skeptics will say, well, you're opening up stores, you're going to get growth just by the nature of growing. What does the footfall look like? But anyway, they're doing well on paper, and it's another value brand that is having its moment. So just out of curiosity,
do
you have a Primark local to you?
No, I know they're in New York and opening more. I need to check because it was a relatively new to me brand a year or two ago.
Yeah.
But what's funny is my kids actually now know about it and have asked about it. So it's, whether it's through social media or probably Fortnite, to be honest, that's how they hear about most things. It's definitely moving kind of in the generational shift. It's moving down. I think I feel like I remember seeing a stat that the US, it's a relatively new business for them, but it's already close to 5% of the business. And that was, relatively quickly. I think they're around 10 to 12 billion in total. So I think, it'll be very interesting to see because de minimis, which is a shipping loophole that's been in the US for quite some time, getting in packages with no taxes or tariffs has been struck down. So it'll be very interesting to see who the new players in, because that significantly has affected Shein and Temu's business in the US. So it'll be interesting to see Primark, when they have stores here, is their business, they're similarly priced. Will their business kind of eat some of that market share that, maybe Shein and Temu were getting because it was easy and free to ship?
Yeah. And I think where they are as well, it's such a convoluted market because you've got the grocers doing a Walmart, Target, doing a phenomenal job with their homeware. Although Target's fashion has struggled, Walmart's really taking off.
Really?
And so, and they do more, they do beauty, they do homeware. So it's one to watch. I think it's an interesting one for a foreign brand expanding across the US.
I agree. Yeah, no, it'll be really interesting to see. And Primark is a great name. So I think, again, looking for value for holiday, it's, a lot of U.S. listeners are in that camp.
They're going to be down there.
Yeah,
we all will. I think everyone knows that they've got to tighten the belt a little bit, or just watch where they're spending. That's it.
Yep. Yeah.
And on that bombshell, Jill, thank you so much for giving up your time to be with me today. And until we meet next time.
Great to see everybody.